The millionaire's daughter was blind, until the new Househelp did something unbelievable. They said it couldn't happen. Complete genetic blindness. Leber congenital amaurosis. No hope, no cure, no sight. Ever. But when the new Househelp sang her grandmother's healing song, 6-year-old Bianca's eyes, that had known no color or light for her entire life, suddenly twitched. Her millionaire father watched in shock as his daughter's impossible vision shattered every medical rule. Before we continue with Bianca's incredible journey, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching this unfold? Are you curled up on your couch in Chicago, maybe listening during your morning walk in Sydney? Or perhaps it's late at night where you are, and you're following along from London or Tokyo. Leave a comment and let me know your city. I absolutely love discovering how far these powerful stories travel across the globe, connecting hearts and minds in the most unexpected places. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. These stories are crafted with so much love, and knowing you're part of this journey means everything. The December morning fog rolled across the Santa Monica hills like a gray shroud as tech mogul Colin Santelli stood at his daughter's bedroom window, watching the world wake up in colors his child had never seen. The view from their $12 million mansion stretched from the Pacific Coast Highway to the Hollywood sign, a vista that meant nothing to the little girl lying motionless in the specially designed bed behind him. 6-year-old Bianca lay perfectly still beneath her silk lavender comforter, her dark curls spread across the pillow like spilled midnight. Her eyes, the same emerald green as her late mother's, stared straight ahead at nothing, seeing nothing, as they had since the day she was born. Colin's reflection in the bulletproof glass showed a man aged beyond his 38 years. His black hair, once perfectly styled for board meetings and tech conferences, now bore streaks of premature silver. The Navy Armani suit that had once made him feel invincible couldn't armor him against the one problem his millions couldn't solve. "Daddy." Bianca's voice was soft as morning rain, carrying that supernatural awareness that blind children develop. "You're standing by the window again. Are you watching the colors I can't see?" The question pierced his chest like it did every morning. 6 years of specialists, experimental treatments, gene therapies that promised miracles, but delivered only emptying bank accounts and shattered hope. His empire, built on creating software that helped millions see data in revolutionary ways, couldn't grant his daughter the simple gift of sight. "I'm watching the sun come up, princess," Colin whispered, forcing warmth into his voice. "It's painting the sky pink and gold today." Dr. Johnson would arrive soon for Bianca's weekly examination. Another painful routine of bright lights shined into eyes that couldn't respond, tests that confirmed what they already knew. Leber congenital amaurosis. Complete congenital blindness. Genetic mutation affecting the RPE65 gene. Medical terminology that meant his daughter would live forever in darkness. 3 floors below in the staff quarters, Gloria Morales had been awake since 4:30 a.m., as was her custom. She used the quiet hours before dawn to pray and study from her grandmother's weathered journal, a book bound in cracked leather that had traveled with her from Kingston to Los Angeles 8 months ago. At 28, Gloria moved with the fluid grace of someone who had learned to make herself invisible while seeing everything. Her rich mahogany skin glowed with health, and her hair was twisted into neat locks she kept pinned up while working. She wore a simple green blouse and dark jeans, bright colors that her grandmother always said carried healing energy. The journal lay open to a page titled "Children Who Cannot See When Light is Trapped." Gloria's fingertips traced the familiar words written in her grandmother's careful script. "Some children's eyes forget how to let in light because their spirits are afraid of what they might see. The healing begins with songs that wake the sleeping parts." Nana Chondice had been a respected healer in their village, known for helping children with ailments that baffled doctors. But here in America, Gloria had learned to keep such knowledge buried deep. Rich people, she discovered, preferred their help to come with medical degrees and expensive equipment. She closed the journal carefully and tucked it into her cleaning supply bag, hidden beneath bottles of eco-friendly polish and microfiber cloths. Her work visa described her as a domestic service provider, nothing more. But the dreams that sometimes came to her about the little girl upstairs told a different story. "Gloria," Mrs. Patterson, the house manager, called sharply. The stern woman in her 60s ran the estate with military precision. "Start with the upper floors today. Mr. Santelli has meetings scheduled in his home office after lunch." "Yes, ma'am," Gloria replied, her slight Jamaican accent softening the words as she climbed the marble staircase, each step echoing in the cavernous foyer. Despite her soft-soled shoes, Gloria could hear voices from Bianca's room as she began dusting the hallway outside. Dr. Johnson had arrived, his confident baritone mixing with Colin's tense tones. "The latest genetic analysis confirms our initial diagnosis," Dr. Johnson was saying as Gloria quietly worked near the doorway. "The mutation in both copies of the RPE65 gene is complete. The photoreceptors in her retinas simply cannot process light signals." "There has to be something." Colin's voice was strained. "Gene therapy, retinal implants. I don't care what it costs." "Mr. Santelli, we've discussed this. The experimental treatments carry significant risks, and the success rates for cases like Bianca's are less than 2%. Gloria paused in her dusting, her heart clenching at the desperation in the father's voice. Through the slightly open door, she could see Bianca lying on the examination table that had been installed in her room. The little girl stared ahead with the resigned patience of someone far too young to possess such acceptance. "Bianca," Dr. Johnson said gently, "I'm going to shine a light in your eyes now, okay? Tell me if you see anything at all." Gloria watched as the doctor aimed a powerful penlight directly into Bianca's eyes. The beam was bright enough to be painful for sighted people, but Bianca's pupils remained fixed, dilated, showing no response to the light that blazed just inches from her face. "I don't see anything," Bianca said quietly, as she always did. "Just the same dark I always see." The words hit Colin like physical blows. He turned away from the examination table, his shoulders sagging. His carefully maintained composure cracked, revealing the broken father beneath the millionaire facade. That was when his eyes met Gloria's through the doorway. She quickly looked away, focusing on a crystal vase that didn't need cleaning. But she'd seen something in his gaze, a rawness that matched her own pain. She knew what it was like to feel powerless, to carry knowledge that others wouldn't accept. "Mr. Santelli," Dr. Johnson continued, his voice growing gentler, "perhaps it's time to focus on helping Bianca develop adaptive skills rather than chasing impossible cures. She's a bright, beautiful child. With the right training and equipment, she can live a full life. Get out." The words were spoken so quietly that Gloria almost missed them. "Excuse me?" Dr. Johnson blinked. "I said get out." Colin's voice was deadly calm. "Take your equipment and your resignation and leave my house." "Mr. Santelli, I understand you're frustrated, but—" "You understand nothing." Colin turned back to face the doctor, and Gloria could see fury burning in his eyes. "You've been telling me for 3 years that my daughter will never see. Well, I'm tired of paying you to prove yourself right." Dr. Johnson packed his equipment with wounded dignity while Bianca watched with wide, unseeing eyes. When he was gone, the silence in the room felt heavy as stone. Gloria found herself moving closer to the doorway, drawn by an impulse she couldn't name. Bianca had been repositioned in her bed, propped up with pillows, her hands folded in her lap. The little girl's face was turned toward the window, though she couldn't see the birds flitting between the branches of the ancient oak tree outside. "I dreamed I could see colors last night," Bianca said suddenly, to no one in particular. "Mama was showing me flowers in a garden. Red roses and green sunflowers. Purple butterflies dancing in blue sky." Colin sat heavily in the chair beside her bed, his head in his hands. "Bianca, sweetheart. It felt real, Daddy. Like my eyes remembered something they forgot." Her young voice carried hope that made Gloria's chest tight. "What if I really could see colors? What if my eyes just need to remember how?" Colin lifted his head, and Gloria saw tears threatening to spill from his eyes. "Baby girl, the doctors say." "The doctors don't know everything." Bianca's voice held stubborn certainty. "Nana Rosa told me so in my dream. She said there are different kinds of seeing." Colin froze. "Nana Rosa? Mama's grandmama. She comes to visit me sometimes when I sleep. She has the most beautiful voice, and she sings songs that make my eyes feel warm." Gloria's hands trembled on her dust cloth. She had never told anyone in this house about her grandmother's healing songs, or how she sometimes hummed them while working. But children, her grandmother had taught her, were naturally attuned to healing vibrations. Somehow, little Bianca was connected to something beyond the physical world, something the expensive doctors and their machines couldn't measure. Colin stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "Bianca, your Nana Rosa died before you were born. She can't. She can in dreams," Bianca said simply. "She told me that someone in this house knows her songs. Someone who could teach them to me." The words hung in the air like a challenge to everything logical, everything medical science had declared impossible. Colin stared at his daughter, torn between desperate hope and the fear of false promises. Gloria backed away from the door, her heart racing. She couldn't be the person Bianca's dreams were calling for. The risk was too great: her job, her visa, her carefully built life in America. Rich people didn't want healing. They wanted miracles they could control and credit they could claim. But as she retreated down the hallway, Bianca's voice followed her. "Daddy, do you think if we asked the right person, my eyes might remember how to see?" The question shattered something inside Gloria's chest. She thought of her grandmother's hands, gentle and knowing as they'd worked with children who couldn't see back home. She thought of the songs that had traveled across oceans and generations, waiting for the right moment to bloom into healing. She thought of a little girl whose spirit was calling out for someone to believe in possibilities beyond medical textbooks. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Bianca's room as Colin sat beside her bed, wrestling with questions that had no medical answers. Somewhere in the vast mansion, a woman with ancient knowledge in her hands continued her invisible work, unaware that the child's dreams were calling her toward a destiny that would change all their lives forever. The phone call came at exactly 4:37 in the afternoon, while Colin sat in his home office staring at research papers he'd already memorized. The voice on the other end belonged to Dr. Sarah Ruiz, the ophthalmologist at UCLA who had been treating Bianca since she was 6 months old. "Mr. Santelli, I heard about your disagreement with Dr. Johnson today." Her tone was carefully professional, but Colin caught the underlying concern. "I think we need to discuss realistic expectations for Bianca's future." Colin's grip tightened on the phone. Through his office window, he could see the December sun casting golden light across the perfectly manicured gardens. Everything in his world was controlled, measured, optimized for success. Everything except the one thing that mattered most. "She's 6 years old," he said quietly. "She shouldn't have to accept limitations." "Colin, listen to me. I've reviewed every test, every genetic analysis from the past 6 years. The RPE65 mutation is complete in both gene copies. Her photoreceptors cannot convert light into electrical signals. There's no pathway for visual information to reach her brain." The words hit him like physical blows. He'd heard them before, but today they felt different. "Final. I understand your hope," Dr. Ruiz continued. "But continuing to pursue impossible cures isn't helping Bianca process her reality. She needs to learn adaptive strategies, not hold on to false expectations." "False expectations?" Colin repeated slowly. "Is that what hope is called now? Hope grounded in medical reality?" "Yes. I can recommend excellent counselors who specialize in helping families accept permanent disabilities. It might be time to consider that path." Colin ended the call without another word. The silence in his office felt suffocating, broken only by the tick of an antique clock his late wife had loved. Sophia would have known what to say, what to do. She'd always believed in possibilities beyond what doctors could see. But Sophia had died in a car accident when Bianca was 2, and Colin had been fighting alone ever since. He found himself walking upstairs toward Bianca's room, his footsteps muffled by thick carpeting. The hallway was quiet except for the soft sound of humming coming from somewhere nearby. As he rounded the corner, he saw Gloria cleaning the windows outside Bianca's door, her voice carrying a melody he didn't recognize. The tune was unlike anything he'd heard before. It seemed to flow like water over stones, each note carrying warmth that made his chest feel less tight. There was something ancient about it, something that spoke to parts of him that had forgotten how to listen. Gloria didn't notice him watching as she moved her cloth across the glass in gentle circles, her voice weaving patterns that seemed to fill the air with light. Her movements were graceful, almost dance-like, as if the song was moving through her entire body. He was about to continue to Bianca's room when he heard his daughter's voice. "That's the song," Bianca whispered from inside her room. "That's Nana Rosa's song." Colin froze. Through the slightly open door, he could see Bianca lying in bed, but her entire body seemed different somehow. Alert, expectant. Gloria's humming faltered for a moment, then continued more softly. "Sing it louder," Bianca called out. "Please, it makes my eyes feel warm." The humming stopped abruptly. Colin watched as Gloria's shoulders tensed, her cleaning cloth pausing mid-motion. "Hello." Bianca's voice was hopeful. "Are you still there?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, Gloria's voice rose again, but this time she wasn't just humming. Words flowed out in what Colin recognized as Jamaican patois, mixed with English phrases that seemed to shimmer in the air. Little bird, why you cannot see." Your eyes them strong, reach out to be free. The darkness don't hold you, light spirit run free. Dance with the ancestors, come dance with me. Colin felt goosebumps rise along his arms. The melody seemed to vibrate through the walls, through his bones, carrying something that felt older than medicine, deeper than science. Inside Bianca's room, something extraordinary was happening. Daddy! Bianca's voice was filled with wonder and excitement. Daddy, come quick! Colin rushed through the doorway and stopped dead. Bianca was still lying in bed, but her eyes were different. Not seeing, not yet, but responsive. Her pupils, which had remained fixed and dilated for 6 years, were contracting and expanding in response to something only she could perceive. Do you see it? Bianca's eyes were bright with tears of joy. Do you see them moving? Colin's mouth went dry. He moved closer to the bed, his eyes fixed on his daughter's face. The pupil responses were subtle, barely visible, but they were real. After 6 years of absolute non-responsiveness, Bianca's eyes were reacting to something. Keep singing, Bianca called toward the door. Please don't stop. Gloria appeared in the doorway, her dark eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. Her cleaning supplies lay forgotten in the hallway as she took in the scene before her. Colin's gaze met hers, and for a moment neither of them breathed. What did you do? Colin's voice was barely a whisper. Gloria's hand shook as she gripped the door frame. I didn't do nothing, sir. I was just cleaning and humming. I always hum while I work. The song, Bianca said urgently. Sing the song again. My eyes want to remember. Colin looked back at his daughter. The pupil responses had stopped, but her face glowed with an excitement he hadn't seen in years. Bianca, what exactly are you feeling? It's like there's warm honey flowing from my heart into my eyes when she sings. I can almost remember what it felt like to see light inside Mama's tummy. Bianca's unseeing eyes never left Gloria's face. You know the healing songs, don't you? Nana Rosa said someone here would know them. Gloria took a step backward. Miss, I don't know what you mean. I just clean houses. No, Bianca said, with the absolute certainty that only children possess. You know the songs that wake up sleeping parts. Nana Rosa showed me in my dreams. She said your grandmother taught you the old ways. The words hung in the air like a bridge between two worlds. Colin found himself caught between his rational mind, which insisted this was impossible, and his father's heart, which had just watched his daughter's eyes respond for the first time in 6 years. How do you know about my grandmother? Gloria's voice was so quiet it was almost lost in the room. She comes to visit sometimes in the place between sleeping and waking. Bianca's voice carried wisdom that seemed far beyond her 6 years. She has the same eyes as you, and she sings the same songs. She said you've been hiding your gifts because people here don't understand. But she said it's time to stop hiding. Gloria's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she looked at this little girl who somehow knew secrets she'd never shared with anyone. My grandmother, she passed 5 years ago. She never. How could you? Time works differently in dreams, Bianca said simply. And love doesn't stop just because bodies do. Colin felt his worldview tilting on its axis. Every rational part of his mind screamed that this was impossible, that coincidence and wishful thinking were creating patterns where none existed. But he couldn't deny what he'd witnessed. He couldn't explain away the response in his daughter's eyes or the connection between these two people who had supposedly never met. The doctors say her photoreceptors are completely non-functional, he said, his voice hoarse. They say there's no way for light signals to reach her brain. Gloria wiped her tears with the back of her hand. My grandmother always said that doctors see with their machines, but healing sees with the heart. Some things can't be measured by technology. That's not science. That's not rational. Maybe not, Gloria agreed quietly. But when did rational ever heal a broken spirit? Bianca reached toward Gloria with both hands. Will you sing again, please? I want to see if my eyes remember more. Colin watched as Gloria struggled with her decision. He could see the war playing out across her face. Fear of exposure fighting against the pull of a child's need, practical caution battling against spiritual calling. I could lose my job, Gloria whispered. People don't understand. They think it's foolishness or worse. I won't let that happen, Colin heard himself saying. The words surprised him, but he realized he meant them completely. Whatever just happened here, whatever you did, I need to understand it. Gloria looked at him for a long moment, as if measuring the sincerity of his promise. Then she stepped fully into the room, her movements deliberate and graceful. My grandmother always said that healing begins with permission, she said softly. Permission from the person who needs healing, permission from those who love them, and permission from the healer to trust what they know in their bones. She moved to stand beside Bianca's bed, her hands hovering over the little girl's face, not quite touching, but close enough that Colin could feel energy radiating between them. "Bianca," Gloria said gently, "I'm going to sing another song my grandmother taught me. But you have to promise me something. You have to listen, not just with your ears, but with every part of you. Can you do that?" Bianca nodded eagerly. "I promise." Gloria closed her eyes and began to sing. This time, her voice was stronger, more confident. The melody filled the room like visible light, and Colin found himself holding his breath as he watched his daughter's face transform with wonder. And then it happened again. Bianca's pupils began to respond, but this time more dramatically. They dilated and contracted in complex patterns, as if following invisible lights dancing before her eyes. "I can see sparkles," Bianca whispered, her voice filled with awe. "Golden sparkles dancing in the dark. They're so beautiful, Daddy. They're so beautiful." The silence after Gloria's song ended felt electric, charged with possibilities that made Colin's rational mind recoil. Bianca's pupils had responded again, more pronounced this time, following patterns of light that existed only in her perception. But now, as the echo of the healing song faded, the spell seemed broken. Bianca's eyes lay still again, and the room felt suddenly ordinary. Colin stared at his daughter's motionless eyes, his mind scrambling to process what he'd witnessed. 6 years of medical training had taught him to trust science, to believe in measurable results and proven treatments. What he'd just seen violated every principle of ophthalmology he'd learned while researching his daughter's condition. "It was probably just pupillary spasm," he said aloud, though his voice lacked conviction. "Involuntary contractions. They happen sometimes in patients with severe visual impairments." Gloria stepped back from the bed, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Yes, sir. That must be it." But Bianca wasn't having any of their rational explanations. "It wasn't spasms, Daddy. I saw them, really saw them, golden lights dancing like tiny stars. My eyes were remembering how to catch light." Her green eyes blazed with frustration. "Why don't you believe me?" Colin ran his hands through his hair, disturbing its perfect styling for the first time all day. "Sweetheart, I want to believe, but the doctors have explained your condition very clearly. Your photoreceptors cannot process light. There's no way for your brain to receive visual signals." "Then how did I see the sparkles?" Bianca challenged. It was the question that had been burning in Colin's mind for the past 10 minutes. How had she seen anything? He'd witnessed it happen twice now, both times while Gloria sang. But correlation wasn't causation. There had to be a logical explanation. "Sometimes the brain retains certain visual processing pathways," he said, pulling from medical articles he'd read. "What you experienced might have been residual neural activity triggered by auditory stimulation." Even as he spoke the words, they felt hollow. Residual neural activity didn't explain the coordinated pupil responses he'd witnessed, or the look of pure joy on his daughter's face when the lights had appeared. Gloria was backing toward the door, her earlier confidence replaced by visible anxiety. "Mr. Santelli, I should get back to my work. I have guest bathrooms to clean before I leave tonight." "Wait," Bianca called out. "Don't go. Please sing again. I want to show Daddy that it's real." "No, sweetheart," Colin said quickly. "Gloria has work to do, and you need rest. It's been an exciting day." He saw the hurt flash across Bianca's face, but he couldn't help himself. The rational part of his mind was reasserting control, building walls against possibilities that threatened his carefully ordered world. If he allowed himself to believe in healing songs and spiritual connections, where would it end? Would he become one of those desperate parents who chased false hope from one charlatan to another? Gloria paused in the doorway, her eyes meeting Bianca's. "Your daddy's right, little one. You need your rest." After Gloria left, Colin sat heavily in the chair beside Bianca's bed. His daughter turned away from him, facing the window where afternoon light streamed through glass she couldn't see. "Bianca," he said gently, "I know you want to believe that woman can help you, but I can't let you get your hopes up for something that isn't medically possible." "You mean something you can't control?" Bianca said quietly, not looking at him. The words stung because they held truth. Colin was a man who fixed problems through research, money, and determination. He'd built a technology empire by finding solutions to impossible challenges, but his daughter's condition had remained stubbornly beyond his ability to solve, and that helplessness ate at him daily. "I want to protect you from disappointment," he said. I'm already disappointed, Daddy. Every day when I wake up and my eyes still don't work. When I hear other kids talk about rainbows and sunsets. When doctors look at me like I'm a puzzle they can't solve. Bianca finally turned to face him, tears glistening in her unseeing eyes. But for 10 minutes today, I felt hope. Real hope. And you want to take that away because it doesn't make sense to you. Colin felt his chest tighten. How could he explain that hope without foundation was cruel? That he'd watched too many experimental treatments fail, seen too many promises turn to ash? Meanwhile, 3 floors below, Gloria sat on the edge of her narrow bed in the staff quarters, her grandmother's journal open in her lap. Her hands shook as she turned to a page she'd avoided reading for months. The entry was dated just 2 weeks before her grandmother's death, written in handwriting that had grown shaky with illness. The gift is not mine to keep hidden. When the ancestors call through a child's voice, the healer must answer. Fear is the enemy of faith, and faith is the mother of miracles. Below that, in her grandmother's careful script, was the song Gloria had sung to Bianca. But there were other songs too, more powerful ones meant for deeper healing. Her grandmother had made her memorize them all before she died, insisting that one day Gloria would understand their purpose. You have the hands, child, her grandmother had whispered on her deathbed. You have the voice and the knowing, but most important, you have the heart that breaks for those who suffer. Don't let fear make you forget who you are. Gloria closed the journal and walked to her small window, which looked out over the mansion's rear gardens. Somewhere above her, a little girl was probably lying awake, wondering why the adults in her life were so frightened of possibility. The truth was, Gloria was terrified, not of the healing itself, but of what would happen when she tried and failed. Back in Jamaica, when her grandmother's treatments didn't work, the community understood that healing was a partnership between the divine, the healer, and the person seeking wholeness. Sometimes the spirit wasn't ready. Sometimes the body needed more time. Sometimes the healing took forms that couldn't be seen with physical eyes. But here in America, failure would mean something different. It would mean she was a fraud, a woman taking advantage of a desperate father's hope. Her visa status was already precarious. If word got out that she was practicing some form of folk medicine without credentials, she could be deported. Yet the memory of Bianca's pupils responding haunted her. The child had felt something real, something that had sparked life in response to the ancestral songs. Gloria's grandmother had always said that children were the best judges of true healing because they hadn't yet learned to doubt what their spirits knew. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister back in Kingston. "How's the rich family treating you?" "Still cleaning their big house." Gloria stared at the message, thinking about how to respond. How could she explain that she'd just witnessed something that challenged everything she thought she knew about her place in this world? Colin was in his office, laptop open to medical research sites. He'd spent the last hour reading about spontaneous recovery in genetic blindness, searching for any scientific explanation for what he'd witnessed. The statistics were brutal. Leber congenital amaurosis with complete RPE65 mutation had a recovery rate of essentially 0. There were cases of partial vision improving over time, instances where initial diagnosis had been wrong, but nothing that matched his daughter's documented condition. He found a few studies on the placebo effect in pediatric patients, research showing that children's brains were more susceptible to suggestion than adult minds. Perhaps Bianca's certainty that she was being healed had triggered some kind of psychological response that manifested physically. But that explanation felt as flimsy as tissue paper. He'd seen those pupil responses with his own eyes. They weren't random twitches or psychological manifestations. They'd been coordinated, purposeful, and directly connected to Gloria's singing. His computer chimed with an email from Dr. Ruiz. "Colin, I've been thinking about our conversation today. I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss Bianca's psychological adjustment to her condition. There are some excellent pediatric counselors who specialize in helping children accept permanent disabilities. Please call me tomorrow." Colin stared at the message, feeling trapped between 2 impossible choices. He could embrace the rational path, help his daughter accept her limitations and find happiness within them, or he could chase an inexplicable possibility that might lead nowhere but deeper disappointment. The sound of Bianca's voice calling for him pulled him from his thoughts. He found her sitting up in bed, her face flushed with excitement. "Daddy, I've been practicing," she said breathlessly. "Watch." Before he could ask what she meant, Bianca closed her eyes and began humming. It was the same melody Gloria had sung, though Bianca's young voice couldn't quite capture its complex rhythms. But as she hummed, something extraordinary happened. Her pupils twitched, just slightly, barely visible, but unmistakably there. Did you see it? Bianca's eyes flew open. I can do it without her singing. I just have to remember the feeling. Colin felt the world tilt again. If Bianca could trigger the responses herself, it suggested something more than external suggestion was at work. It implied that the healing songs had awakened something within her that had been dormant, not dead. 2 floors below, Gloria made a decision that would change everything. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in months. "Sister?" came the familiar voice from Kingston. "Marie, I need to tell you something. Remember the stories Nana used to tell about children who came to her in dreams? About healing songs that traveled across oceans to find the ones who needed them." "Gloria, what's wrong? You sound—" "I think I found her, Marie. The child Nana saw in her visions. The little girl with the green eyes who needed the old songs." There was silence on the other end, then, "Gloria, be careful. America isn't like home. People there don't understand our ways. But what if this is why I came here? What if everything, the visa, the job, ending up in this house, what if it was all leading to this moment?" Gloria looked up at the ceiling, knowing that somewhere above her, a 6-year-old girl was discovering she could make her own eyes respond to healing songs. The ancestors were calling, and Gloria could no longer pretend she couldn't hear them. "Marie, I'm going to need you to send me something. Nana's recipe for the seeing oil. The one she used for children whose eyes had forgotten how to let in light. Gloria, I know the risks, but some things are more important than safety." As Gloria ended the call, she felt her grandmother's presence surrounding her like a warm embrace. Upstairs, Colin was witnessing his daughter create her own small miracles. Neither of them knew that the real healing was about to begin. Colin woke to the sound of rain hammering against his bedroom windows with unusual intensity. The weather forecast had mentioned possible storms, but this sounded like nature was waging war against the glass. He checked his phone, multiple alerts about a rare December storm system moving through Southern California, bringing flooding, power outages, and dangerous driving conditions. By 7:30, as he made his way to Bianca's room for their usual morning routine, the storm had intensified beyond anything meteorologists had predicted. The power flickered twice during his walk down the hallway, and he could hear the mansion's backup generator humming to life in the basement. "Daddy, look how angry the sky is," Bianca said from her bed, though she couldn't see the sheets of rain slashing across her window. The oak tree outside bent and swayed in the wind, its branches scraping against the glass like desperate fingers. "It sounds like the whole world is crying. It's just a winter storm, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about." But even as Colin spoke, the lights flickered again, longer this time. "Mrs. Patterson is making sure all the emergency systems are ready." What he didn't tell Bianca was that Mrs. Patterson had already informed him that 3 staff members, including the cook and one of the gardeners, had called to say the roads were too dangerous to travel. The city had issued mandatory stay-at-home orders for everyone except emergency personnel. At 8:15, the power went out completely. The mansion's backup generator kicked in immediately, but it was designed to power only essential systems: lights in the main living areas, security systems, and critical medical equipment. The sprawling estate, normally bright and welcoming, became a maze of shadows and dim corridors. "Mr. Santelli?" Gloria's voice came from the hallway. She appeared in Bianca's doorway, still wearing her green blouse but now with a heavy sweater over it. "Mrs. Patterson asked me to check if Miss Bianca's room systems are functioning properly." Colin looked around the room. The specialized air filtration system was working, as was the humidifier that helped keep Bianca's sensitive eyes comfortable. But the room felt different in the generators. "Everything seems to be running," he said, "though the heating system is on backup power, so it might get cooler than usual." As if summoned by his words, a particularly violent gust of wind rattled the windows, followed by a sound like breaking glass from somewhere else in the mansion. "That was the conservatory," Gloria said, her face creased with concern. "I should go check on it." "No," Colin said quickly. "It's not safe to be walking around with debris flying. Mrs. Patterson and I can handle whatever's broken once the storm passes." Gloria nodded, but she didn't leave. Instead, she lingered in the doorway, her eyes moving between Colin and Bianca with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Are you cold, Miss Bianca?" Gloria asked gently. "A little," Bianca admitted. The backup power wasn't providing enough energy to maintain the room's usual temperature, and Colin could see goosebumps on his daughter's arms despite her warm pajamas. Without hesitation, Gloria moved to the closet and pulled out an extra blanket, tucking it carefully around Bianca's small frame. Her movements were gentle, practiced, and Colin realized this wasn't the first time she'd cared for someone who needed special attention. "Better?" Gloria asked. "Much better, thank you." Bianca's voice was soft, but her unseeing eyes held that same intensity Colin had noticed the day before. "Will you stay here with us until the storm passes?" Gloria glanced at Colin, clearly uncertain about her boundaries. "I should probably go help Mrs. Patterson with storm preparations." "Mrs. Patterson is handling the main house," Colin found himself saying. "And honestly, I'd feel better if someone with experience was here with Bianca, just in case." The words surprised him as he spoke them. Gloria wasn't medically trained in any conventional sense, but yesterday's events had shown him that she possessed knowledge that went beyond standard credentials. If the storm knocked out more systems, if Bianca needed care that went beyond what machines could provide, perhaps traditional healing wisdom would be more valuable than he'd previously thought. "If you're sure, sir," Gloria said quietly. "I'm sure." As the morning progressed, the storm grew worse instead of better. By 10 o'clock, the generator was straining to maintain power to essential systems. The radio running on battery backup reported that this was the worst December storm to hit Los Angeles in 50 years. Multiple highways were closed, power was out across most of the city, and emergency services were overwhelmed. "Looks like we're going to be stuck together for a while," Colin said, trying to keep his voice light for Bianca's sake. But being trapped together meant confronting the tension that had been building since yesterday's events. In the dim lighting and confined space, with the outside world effectively shut off, there was nowhere to retreat to. No medical appointments to attend, no work calls to take, no excuses to avoid the impossible questions that hung in the air between them. "Daddy," Bianca said around noon as they shared sandwiches that Gloria had prepared from the kitchery's emergency supplies. "Can Gloria tell us about her grandmother? The one who taught her the healing songs." Colin felt his stomach tighten. "Sweetheart, maybe now isn't the best time. When would be a better time?" Bianca's question was simple but carried weight. "We're all here together. The storm won't let us leave, and yesterday you saw my eyes move when she sang." Gloria, who had been quietly eating her sandwich in a chair by the window, looked up. "Mr. Santelli, I understand if you don't want to hear about such things. I know they seem strange to people who haven't grown up with them." "It's not that they're strange," Colin said slowly. "It's that they're unproven. Anecdotal. I've spent 6 years researching every possible treatment for Bianca's condition. If healing songs worked, there would be scientific studies, peer-reviewed research, documented cases." "Maybe some things can't be studied in laboratories," Gloria replied gently. "My grandmother always said that healing happens in the space between science and spirit. It requires both knowledge and faith." "Faith doesn't regenerate damaged photoreceptors," Colin said. "Doesn't it?" Bianca interrupted. "What about the faith that made you keep trying when every doctor said I'd never improve? What about the faith that made you spend millions of dollars on treatments with less than 2% success rates?" Colin stared at his daughter, startled by her insight. She was right. His relentless pursuit of medical solutions had been an act of faith, just faith directed toward scientific rather than spiritual possibilities. "That's different," he said, but his conviction was wavering. "Is it?" Gloria asked. "Or is it just faith in a different kind of knowledge?" The generator chose that moment to stutter, plunging them into brief darkness before the lights flickered back on. In that moment of vulnerability, Colin felt his carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. "Tell me about your grandmother," he heard himself saying. Gloria's face softened with surprise and something that looked like relief. "Her name was Chondice Campbell. Back in our village in Jamaica, people called her Nana Chondice. She had what we call the gift of hands. Children who couldn't see, adults with pain that doctors couldn't touch, people whose spirits were broken, they all came to her. And she healed them? Actually cured them? Some she did. Others she helped in different ways. She always said healing comes in many forms. Sometimes the body gets better. Sometimes the heart finds peace. Sometimes the person discovers strength they didn't know they had." Gloria's eyes grew distant with memory. But she never promised miracles. She just offered what she could give. What did she give them, exactly? Songs that her grandmother taught her, and her grandmother's grandmother before that. Hands that could feel where the hurt lived in a person's body. Plants and oils that carried healing properties. But mostly she gave them someone who believed in their wholeness, even when they couldn't see it themselves. Bianca had been listening with rapt attention. "Is that what you were doing yesterday? Helping me see my wholeness?" Gloria turned to meet the little girl's gaze. "I was sharing what my grandmother taught me. But the response that happened in your eyes, that came from you, from something inside you that was already there, just waiting to be awakened. But the doctors say there's nothing there. They say my photoreceptors are completely broken." "The doctors see with their instruments," Gloria said carefully. "But sometimes there are connections that machines can't measure. Sometimes the spirit finds ways to reach the body that science doesn't understand yet." Colin felt himself being pulled into a worldview that challenged everything he thought he knew about healing and possibility. "So you're saying that what we witnessed yesterday was... what exactly?" "I'm saying that your daughter's spirit is stronger than her diagnosis. I'm saying that sometimes love and faith can create pathways that medical scans can't detect. I'm saying that healing is a mystery, not a formula." Outside, lightning cracked across the sky, followed immediately by thunder that shook the entire mansion. In the brief, brilliant flash, Colin saw something in Gloria's face that made his breath catch. It was the same expression he'd seen on Bianca's face when her pupils had responded to the healing song. Absolute certainty, unshakable faith in possibilities beyond the visible world. "If what you're suggesting is true," Colin said slowly, "if there really is some kind of healing available to Bianca that goes beyond conventional medicine, what would that mean? What would we need to do?" Gloria was quiet for a long moment, her hands folded in her lap. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of generations. "It would mean trusting in something bigger than what we can control. It would mean working together, combining your resources with traditional knowledge, your love for Bianca with faith in her own healing power. And if it doesn't work, if we try and nothing happens, then we'll know we honored every possibility. And sometimes, Mr. Santelli, that's the most healing thing of all." The storm raged on outside, but inside Bianca's room, something was shifting. The forced proximity was breaking down barriers, creating space for conversations that might never have happened under normal circumstances. Colin found himself considering possibilities he would have dismissed as fantasy just days before. "Sing to me again," Bianca said suddenly. "Please, Gloria. I want to see if the feelings are stronger now that we're all together." Gloria looked to Colin, asking permission without words. Colin met her gaze and, after a moment that felt like stepping off a cliff, nodded. As Gloria's voice rose in the ancient healing song, Colin watched his daughter's face transform with wonder. And when Bianca's pupils began to respond again, more pronounced than ever before, following complex patterns of invisible light, he felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been frozen with grief and fear for 6 years. Something that was finally ready to believe in miracles. But their moment of hope was about to be shattered by forces beyond their control. The phone call that would change everything came 3 days after the storm, at exactly 2:17 p.m., while Colin was in his office reviewing footage from the security cameras that had captured Gloria singing to Bianca. He'd been studying the recordings obsessively, trying to understand the precise moments when his daughter's pupils responded to the healing songs. "Mr. Santelli?" The voice belonged to Mrs. Patterson, but her usual composure was strained. "There are visitors here to see you. They say it's urgent, regarding Miss Bianca's care." Colin felt ice form in his stomach. "Who are they?" "Dr. Sarah Ruiz from UCLA and someone from the Department of Children and Family Services. They have documentation with them, sir." Colin's blood turned cold. Through his office window, he could see a black sedan in the circular driveway, the kind of official vehicle that carried government authority and the power to tear families apart. He found Dr. Ruiz in the main foyer alongside a stern-looking woman in her 50s wearing a navy blazer and carrying an official briefcase. The tension in the room was immediate and suffocating. "Colin," Dr. Ruiz said, her usual warmth replaced by clinical distance. "This is Linda Morrison from DCFS. We need to discuss some serious concerns that have been brought to our attention." "What kind of concerns?" Colin kept his voice steady, but his protective instincts were screaming. Ms. Morrison stepped forward, consulting a tablet in her hands. "Mr. Santelli, we received a report that your daughter is receiving unqualified medical treatment from a domestic worker. Additionally, there are concerns about your recent dismissal of her established medical team without arranging for replacement care." "Who made this report?" Colin demanded. "That's confidential," Ms. Morrison replied coolly. "But we take any allegations of medical neglect very seriously, especially when they involve a disabled child." Colin realized that Dr. Johnson must have filed a complaint after being dismissed. The man had probably painted Colin as an unstable father chasing dangerous alternative treatments. There's been a misunderstanding, Colin said carefully. Bianca is receiving excellent care. Dr. Ruiz spoke up. Colin, Dr. Johnson told me you've terminated all conventional medical treatment and are now relying on some kind of folk healing. Is that accurate? It's more complicated than that. Mr. Santelli, Ms. Morrison interrupted. We need to see your daughter immediately. If she's being subjected to unproven treatments that could be harmful, we have the authority to remove her from the home pending a full investigation. The words hit Colin like physical blows. They wanted to take Bianca away, separate her from a healing process that was finally working, all because they couldn't understand what they were witnessing. You can't just take my daughter. Actually, we can, Ms. Morrison said coolly. When a child's safety is at risk, we have broad authority to act. Now please take us to see Bianca. Colin led them upstairs with growing dread, knowing that what they were about to witness would be impossible to explain within their framework of understanding. As they approached Bianca's room, he could hear Gloria's voice singing softly and Bianca's delighted laughter. Daddy, come see. Bianca called out as they entered. I can see shapes now. Gloria's hands make golden circles when she moves them. She was sitting up in bed, her unseeing eyes tracking movement that wasn't there, except somehow it was. Her pupils were responding in complex patterns, following invisible lights that danced before her face. Dr. Ruiz stopped dead in the doorway. That's not possible. Her ocular response tests show complete photoreceptor dysfunction. Gloria, who'd been sitting beside the bed guiding Bianca through visual exercises, immediately stood and stepped back. Colin could see fear flicker across her face as she took in the official-looking strangers. Bianca, Ms. Morrison said, her voice artificially gentle. I'm Linda, and this is Dr. Ruiz. We're here to make sure you're healthy and safe. Can you tell me what this woman has been doing with you? Gloria's been teaching me how to remember how to see, Bianca said proudly. Watch this. She concentrated for a moment, then her pupils began their mysterious dance, dilating and contracting in patterns that should have been medically impossible. I couldn't do that 4 days ago, Bianca continued, her voice bright with accomplishment. Dr. Ruiz moved closer to examine Bianca's eyes, her face a mixture of confusion and professional skepticism. Colin, what exactly has been happening here? Healing, Colin said simply. Real healing. There's no such thing as real healing for complete genetic blindness, Dr. Ruiz said sharply. What I'm seeing here suggests either a misdiagnosis from the beginning, or... She trailed off, clearly struggling to find another explanation. Ms. Morrison had turned her attention to Gloria. Ma'am, what are your medical qualifications? Are you licensed to provide vision therapy or any other form of medical treatment? I'm not medically licensed, Gloria replied quietly. I was just sharing songs my grandmother taught me. Songs? Ms. Morrison's voice rose. You're treating a blind child with songs? Ms. Morrison, Colin interjected. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. A vulnerable disabled child is being subjected to unproven folk remedies by an unqualified caregiver while her father has abandoned legitimate medical care. This is exactly the kind of situation DCFS exists to address. But it's working, Bianca protested. My eyes are getting better. Why is that bad? Dr. Ruiz sat on the edge of the bed and began conducting a quick examination. She tested Bianca's pupil responses, checked her ocular alignment, and had her attempt various visual tasks. With each test, her frown deepened. This doesn't make medical sense, she muttered. According to your genetic profile, you shouldn't have any functional photoreceptors. These responses are impossible. Maybe the tests were wrong, Bianca suggested innocently. 6 years of tests can't all be wrong, Dr. Ruiz said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. She looked up at Colin. I need to run new tests immediately. Full genetic reanalysis, updated retinal imaging, complete reassessment of her visual pathways. Fine, Colin said. Test whatever you want. You'll find that Bianca's condition is improving dramatically. Ms. Morrison was taking notes on her tablet. Mr. Santelli, I'm going to need a complete explanation of what's been happening here. Who is this woman? What treatments has she been providing? And why did you terminate your daughter's medical care? Before Colin could answer, Bianca spoke up with the fearless honesty of childhood. You're all acting like what's happening to me is bad, but it's the best thing that's ever happened. For the first time in my whole life, I can see lights and shapes. Why are you trying to stop that? The question hung in the air, exposing the fundamental conflict between bureaucratic caution and miraculous possibility. Ms. Morrison and Dr. Ruiz represented a system designed to protect children from harm, but their definition of harm didn't include preventing healing that fell outside conventional understanding. Bianca, Dr. Ruiz said gently, sometimes people can make us believe things are happening when they're not really happening. It's called the placebo effect. You think I'm making this up? Bianca's voice carried hurt and indignation. Watch. She closed her eyes, concentrated deeply, and then pointed directly at Gloria, who was standing silently by the window. Gloria's right there, wearing her green shirt. And there's a golden light around her hands that gets brighter when she's about to sing. The room fell silent. What Bianca had just done was impossible for someone with complete genetic blindness. Yet she'd done it with 3 medical professionals as witnesses. Ms. Morrison was the first to speak. Mr. Santelli, I'm going to need to interview this woman separately, and I want Bianca examined by an independent medical team. That's fine, Colin said, though his stomach was churning. But I won't have Bianca separated from her care. That may not be your choice to make, Ms. Morrison replied coldly. If we determine that this woman has been providing unqualified medical treatment, she could face criminal charges. And if we determine that you've been neglecting your daughter's medical needs, we'll remove her from your custody. Gloria stepped forward, her face pale but determined. Ms. Morrison, I understand your concerns, but before you make any decisions, please let me explain what we've been doing. Ma'am, anything you say could be used in legal proceedings. I'd advise you to remain silent until you've consulted with an attorney. I don't care about legal proceedings, Gloria said firmly. I care about that little girl. If explaining myself helps protect her access to healing, then I'll explain everything. Colin watched as the woman who had been so careful about protecting herself suddenly became fierce in defense of Bianca's well-being. It was a transformation that revealed the true depth of her commitment to the healing process. What we've been doing isn't medical treatment in the way you understand it, Gloria continued. It's spiritual healing based on traditions that are thousands of years old. I'm not claiming to be a doctor or therapist. I'm sharing knowledge that my grandmother passed down to me. Knowledge that's helping this child reconnect with her own healing power. Dr. Ruiz shook her head. Spiritual healing doesn't regenerate damaged genetic pathways. Maybe it doesn't regenerate anything, Gloria replied calmly. Maybe it just helps the spirit remember what the body never forgot. Ms. Morrison looked back and forth between them, clearly struggling with a situation that didn't fit into any of her usual categories. Mr. Santelli, I'm placing a temporary hold on these sessions until we can complete our investigation. And I'm recommending immediate medical evaluation to ensure your daughter hasn't been harmed. You can't stop us from healing together, Bianca said, her voice growing stronger. We're family now. Families take care of each other. Bianca, Ms. Morrison said, this woman is not your family. She's an employee who may have overstepped her boundaries. She's more family to me than any of the doctors who told me I'd never get better, Bianca shot back with surprising fierceness. But even as Bianca defended their bond, Colin could see the walls closing in. The system that was supposed to protect his daughter was about to become her greatest obstacle to healing. Official reports would be filed, legal proceedings would begin, and Gloria could be deported for sharing the knowledge that was giving Bianca sight. As the officials prepared to leave with their threats and ultimatums, Colin made a decision that would change the course of all their lives. He pulled out his phone and called his attorney, then his publicist, then the investigative journalist who'd been trying to interview him for months about innovative treatments for genetic blindness. If the system wanted to fight them, he would fight back. But this time, he wouldn't fight alone. As the black sedan pulled away from the mansion, Colin, Gloria, and Bianca stood together in the foyer, a makeshift family united by love and threatened by forces that couldn't understand the miracles they'd witnessed. The real battle was about to begin. What happens when the system tries to destroy something beautiful just because it doesn't understand it? These 3 have found something miraculous together, but now they'll have to fight to protect it. Share your thoughts in the comments about what you think they should do next, and don't forget to subscribe because this story is about to get even more incredible. After the officials left with their threats of legal action and custody proceedings, the mansion felt like a tomb. Colin sat in his office, staring at his laptop screen, but the words of the legal documents he was trying to read blurred together. His mind kept circling back to the same impossible choice. protect Bianca's healing, or protect her from being taken away from him entirely. His phone had been ringing constantly since Dr. Ruiz and Ms. Morrison departed. His attorney had called 3 times urging him to comply with the DCFS investigation and immediately reinstate conventional medical care. The hospital's legal department wanted to schedule emergency meetings. Child welfare advocates were demanding explanations he couldn't give without sounding delusional. But the call that shattered his remaining composure came at 4:45 p.m. Mr. Santelli, this is Attorney General Patricia Walsh's office. We understand there may be immigration law violations occurring in your household involving the provision of unlicensed medical services by a foreign national. Colin's hands trembled as he gripped the phone. They weren't just coming after him for medical neglect. They were going after Gloria's immigration status, threatening her with deportation for sharing her grandmother's healing knowledge. I need to speak with my attorney, Colin said. Of course, sir. But I should inform you that ICE has been notified of the situation. If Ms. Morales has violated the terms of her work visa by providing unauthorized medical services, she could be detained pending deportation proceedings. The line went dead, leaving Colin staring at his phone in horror. In trying to heal his daughter, he had put Gloria's entire future in America at risk. Her visa was tied to her employment as domestic help. If authorities reclassified her activities as unauthorized medical practice, she could lose everything. 3 floors above, Gloria sat on her narrow bed, her grandmother's journal open in her lap. She had been packing her few belongings into 2 suitcases, preparing for what seemed inevitable. Her hands shook as she folded the green blouse she'd worn the first day she sang to Bianca, remembering how terrified she'd been to reveal her gifts. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister in Kingston. Everything okay? You haven't called in 3 days. How could she explain that she was about to lose everything because she tried to help a little girl see? How could she describe the miracle she'd witnessed, the healing that was happening against all medical understanding, and the way a millionaire's daughter had looked at her with such trust and love? Another text appeared. Immigration lawyer says you should be careful about overstaying visa limits. Don't do anything that might jeopardize your status. Too late for that advice. Gloria closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to her grandmother's spirit. Nana, what do I do? If I stay and fight, I might be deported and never be able to help anyone again. But if I leave now, Bianca loses her chance to see. As if in response to her prayer, she heard small footsteps running down the hallway outside her door, a sound she'd never heard before in the mansion. It made her stomach drop with realization. She opened her door to find Bianca standing in the corridor without her usual guidance cane, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes tracking movement with impossible accuracy. Bianca, Gloria gasped. How did you get down here? How are you? I can see shadows now, Bianca said, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Big dark shapes and bright spots. I followed the light coming from under your door. She paused, her unseeing eyes somehow finding Gloria's face. Daddy told me you're packing to leave. Gloria knelt beside the little girl, her heart breaking at the sight of this brave child who was learning to see just as their world was falling apart. Sweetheart, the situation is complicated. The government people don't understand what we've been doing. So you're just going to give up? Bianca's green eyes flashed with an anger Gloria had never seen before. You're going to let them win? I'm trying to protect you. If I stay and they arrest me, you could get taken away from your daddy. That would be worse than anything. No, it wouldn't. Bianca's voice was fierce with conviction. Being taken away from both of you would be the worst thing. But losing my chance to see again because grown-ups are scared, that's the second worst thing. Colin appeared at the end of the hallway, his face haggard with exhaustion and impossible decisions. Bianca, you shouldn't be down here bothering Gloria while she's running away, Bianca finished. Just like you want to run away from the lawyers and doctors. That's not fair, sweetheart. I'm trying to find a solution that keeps us all safe. Safe isn't the same as right, Bianca shot back. Mama wouldn't have given up. The words hit Colin like a physical blow. Sophia had been fearless in the face of impossible odds, fighting for their unborn daughter's life even when doctors said the genetic condition was hopeless. She had chosen love over safety, hope over reasonable expectations. Bianca, Colin said quietly, what exactly are you asking me to do? Fight for us. Fight for our family. Bianca reached out to take both their hands. The 3 of us together, we're stronger than we are apart. But if we fight and lose, the consequences could be devastating, Colin said. Gloria could be deported. You could be placed in foster care. I could lose you forever. And if we don't fight? Bianca replied. I definitely lose my chance to see, and we definitely lose each other anyway. Gloria felt tears streaming down her cheeks. This 6-year-old child was displaying more courage than either of the adults who claimed to want to protect her. Bianca's right, she heard herself say. I've been so afraid of losing my status in America that I forgot why I came here in the first place. My grandmother didn't send me across an ocean to give up at the first sign of trouble. Colin looked back and forth between them. These two people who had become the most important parts of his world in the span of just 5 days. If we're going to fight this, we need to be smart about it. We need evidence, documentation, witnesses who can testify to what they've seen. I could be a witness, Bianca said immediately. I'll tell them exactly what happened to my eyes. A 6-year-old's testimony won't be enough. We need medical professionals who can examine you and confirm the improvements. Gloria suddenly straightened. What about Dr. Johnson? He examined you the day before I first sang to you. He has records of your complete lack of visual response. He's the one who reported us to DCFS, Colin reminded her. But he's also a doctor who documented your condition extensively. If we could get him to examine Bianca now, to see the changes with his own eyes. He'd never agree to that. He thinks we're dangerous. Bianca's face lit up with sudden inspiration. What if we didn't ask him? What if we just showed him? Colin frowned. What do you mean? What if we went to his office, just walked in during his regular hours, and asked for an examination? If I can demonstrate vision responses that weren't there 6 days ago, he'd have to acknowledge it as a medical professional. Bianca, you can't see clearly yet. How would we walk into his office? Bianca's smile was radiant with possibility. But I can see shapes and shadows now. I can follow lights and movement. And yesterday during our session when I was dreaming about the garden with Mama, I almost felt like I could see her face. Almost isn't the same as actually doing it, Colin said gently. Then let's find out what I can actually do, Bianca said with determination that reminded Colin powerfully of her mother. Let's do a healing session right now, a real one with everything we've learned, and let's see how far I've really come. Gloria looked uncertain. Bianca, healing doesn't work on demand. It happens when the spirit is ready, when the conditions are right. The conditions are right, Bianca insisted. We're all here, we all believe in what's possible, and we're not giving up on each other. Those are the only conditions that matter. But even as they planned their desperate strategy, none of them knew that their conversation was being recorded. Mrs. Patterson, under pressure from DCFS and fearing for her own position, had been instructed to monitor and report on all interactions between Gloria and the family. By morning, their plan would be in the hands of authorities who were already building a case to separate them permanently. The healing session they were about to attempt wouldn't just be their last chance to prove Bianca's recovery. It would be their final moments together as a family before the system tore them apart. As Gloria unpacked her suitcases and Colin helped Bianca back upstairs, none of them realized they were walking into a trap that would test everything they believed about love, faith, and the power of miracles to overcome impossible odds. The darkest hour was about to begin. The morning sun streaming through Bianca's bedroom windows felt different as Gloria opened her grandmother's journal to the final, most powerful healing sequence. Colin positioned himself at his daughter's shoulders while Gloria moved to the foot of the bed, her hands hovering over Bianca's face with practiced precision. This is different from what we've done before, Gloria said softly, reading from her grandmother's carefully written notes. This technique is designed to complete the healing circuit, to fully reconnect spirit and sight. But it requires absolute trust and complete surrender to the process. What does that mean? Colin asked. It means letting go of any fear about what might happen and focusing only on what we want to create together, Gloria explained. It means believing not just in possibility, but in certainty. Bianca closed her eyes and took a deep breath. I'm ready. I can feel Mama here with us. She's been waiting for this moment. As Gloria began to sing, her voice carried harmonies that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her physical form. The melody was deeper than the songs she'd shared before, more complex, layered with rhythms that felt ancient and timeless. Colin could feel the vibrations through the floor, through the walls, through his own bones. Within moments, Bianca's eyes began responding in patterns more coordinated than anything they'd witnessed before. Her pupils dilated and contracted in complex sequences, as if following elaborate light displays that danced just beyond the physical realm. Oh my God, Colin whispered. Bianca, can you see what's happening? I can see everything, she replied, her voice filled with wonder. It's like the whole world is made of golden light. The darkness is melting away like ice in sunshine. Gloria's hands moved in intricate patterns above Bianca's face, weaving connections that looked like visible threads of light in the morning sun. Her voice rose and fell in waves of healing power that seemed to fill every corner of the room with warmth and possibility. For nearly 40 minutes, they continued the session. Bianca's responses became stronger, more purposeful, more natural with each passing moment. Colin could see color returning to his daughter's eyes, not just the physical green of her irises, but an inner light that had been absent since birth. Finally, Gloria began to bring the song to a close, her voice gentling into a whispered lullaby that seemed to seal the healing energy into Bianca's visual pathways. "How do you feel, little one?" she asked. Bianca opened her eyes slowly, and Colin was startled by what he saw there. His daughter's gaze held a depth and clarity that seemed far beyond her 6 years. "I feel different," she said simply. "Like my eyes are really awake for the first time in my life." "Can you see us clearly?" Colin asked, hardly daring to hope. Instead of answering with words, Bianca looked directly at him. Not the unfocused stare of blindness, but true eye contact that made his breath catch. "Daddy, you have lines around your eyes when you smile. And Gloria, your hands really do glow golden when you sing." Colin felt tears streaming down his face. For the first time in 6 years, his daughter was truly seeing him. "I want to try walking without my cane," Bianca said suddenly. "I want to see where I'm going." Gloria and Colin moved to either side of her as she slowly stood up. Her movements were tentative at first, but then she began to walk across the room with increasing confidence, her eyes tracking objects and obstacles she'd never been able to perceive before. "I can see the oak tree outside my window," she said, her voice filled with joy. "And birds. There are actually birds flying between the branches." Colin watched his daughter experience sight for the first time in her life, and he knew that no force on earth could convince him this wasn't real, wasn't miraculous, wasn't worth fighting for. "We need to document this," he said suddenly. "We need to record everything before." He was interrupted by the sound of vehicles in the driveway. Multiple vehicles. Through Bianca's window, he could see not just the black DCFS sedan, but also police cars and what looked like an IC enforcement van. "They're early," Gloria said quietly, her face pale with understanding. "Someone told them about our plans." Colin realized that Mrs. Patterson must have been reporting on them. The authorities had come to stop their healing session, to separate them before Bianca's recovery could be completed or documented. "Daddy, I can see the badges on their uniforms," Bianca said, her newly awakened eyes wide with fear. "They're coming to take Gloria away, aren't they?" "Not if I have anything to say about it," Colin replied, pulling out his phone. In rapid succession, he placed calls to his attorney, his publicist, and the investigative journalist who'd been pursuing the story of innovative treatments for genetic blindness. "This is Colin Santelli. I need immediate media coverage at my Santa Monica address. We have documented medical evidence of impossible healing, and government officials are trying to suppress it. Get every camera crew you can here in the next 20 minutes." Gloria looked at him with surprise and gratitude. "You're really going to fight for us?" "I'm going to fight for the truth," Colin said. "And the truth is that what we've witnessed here challenges everything the medical establishment thinks it knows about healing." Bianca moved to the window, her eyes tracking the movements of the officials below with perfect clarity. "They don't look happy," she observed. "Should I go down and show them I can see?" "Not yet, sweetheart. First we wait for the cameras. If the whole world is watching, they'll have to be very careful about what they do to us." Within 15 minutes, news vans began arriving. Colin's publicist had worked miracles, alerting every major network about a breaking story involving impossible medical recovery and government interference. By the time Ms. Morrison and her team rang the doorbell, the circular driveway was filled with reporters and camera crews. "Mr. Santelli," Ms. Morrison said as he opened the door, her voice tight with controlled anger. "I see you've chosen to turn this into a media circus." "I've chosen to ensure that the truth gets told," Colin replied calmly. "Would you like to see what Bianca can do now? Because I think the world deserves to witness what you're trying to stop." Dr. Ruiz pushed forward, her face skeptical but curious. "Colin, if you're claiming some kind of breakthrough, it needs to be properly evaluated under controlled conditions." "Then evaluate it," Colin said. "Right here, right now, with every camera recording. Test her vision, check her responses, Compare the results to your own records from last week. As the crowd of officials, reporters, and camera crews gathered in Bianca's room, Gloria felt her grandmother's presence surrounding her like a protective embrace. This was the moment everything had been leading to, not just Bianca's healing, but the revelation that love and faith could create miracles that science couldn't explain but could no longer deny. Bianca stood in the center of the room, her eyes bright and clear, looking directly at each person present with perfect visual tracking. "I'm ready," she said simply. "Test me however you want. I can see everything." The turning point had arrived. In the next few minutes, they would either prove that miracles were real or watch their impossible family be torn apart forever. The room fell silent as Dr. Ruiz set up her portable examination equipment, her hands trembling slightly as she realized the magnitude of what she was about to witness. Camera crews positioned themselves to capture every moment, while Ms. Morrison stood rigidly beside the ICE officials, her face a mask of bureaucratic determination. "Bianca," Dr. Ruiz said, her voice professional but strained, "I'm going to repeat the same tests I performed on you 6 days ago. I want you to follow this light with your eyes." She produced a powerful penlight and moved it slowly from left to right. Bianca's eyes tracked the movement perfectly, her pupils responding with textbook precision to every change in direction and intensity. Dr. Ruiz's hands began to shake. "This is impossible. According to your genetic profile, you have no functional photoreceptors." "Maybe you should test her genetic profile again," Colin suggested quietly. Dr. Ruiz moved to more complex tests, reading eye charts, identifying colors, tracking multiple objects simultaneously. Bianca passed every examination with responses that were not just normal, but exceptional. "I can see the freckle on your nose, Dr. Ruiz," Bianca said cheerfully, "and the coffee stain on your sleeve. And that man behind you is wearing a badge that says Immigration and Customs Enforcement." The ICE official stepped forward, his expression uncertain. "Ms. Morales, we're here to investigate reports of unauthorized medical practice." "Sir," interrupted a reporter who'd been filming everything, "are you really planning to arrest someone for helping a blind child see? Because that's what our viewers are watching right now." Dr. Ruiz completed her examination in stunned silence, then turned to face the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've been treating this child for 6 years. Her medical records show complete genetic blindness, Leber congenital amaurosis with total RPE 65 dysfunction. What I've just witnessed should be medically impossible." She paused, visibly struggling with the implications. Yet here she is, demonstrating visual acuity that's not just normal, but better than normal. "I cannot explain this recovery using any known medical science." Ms. Morrison pushed forward, her face flushed with frustrated authority. "Dr. Ruiz, regardless of what we're seeing, unauthorized medical treatment was provided by an unlicensed individual." "What unauthorized treatment?" Bianca interrupted, walking confidently across the room to stand beside Gloria. "Gloria taught me songs. She never touched my eyes or gave me medicine. She just helped me remember how to see." Colin stepped forward, his voice carrying the confidence of a man who'd found unshakable truth. "Ms. Morrison, you came here to protect my daughter from harm. But the only harm being done here is your attempt to separate her from the healing that gave her sight." The lead reporter thrust her microphone toward Ms. Morrison. "Are you really planning to break up a family where a miracle just occurred? Our audience is watching live, and they want to know, is the government opposed to healing that doesn't come from pharmaceutical companies?" Gloria moved to Bianca's side, her voice carrying new strength. "I shared the knowledge my grandmother gave me, songs and wisdom that have healed children for generations. I never claimed to be a doctor. I never charged money. I just offered what little I could give to help a child who needed it." She looked directly into the cameras. "My grandmother always said that healing belongs to everyone, not just to people with medical degrees. If helping a child see is a crime, then I'm guilty. But I won't apologize for giving this little girl the gift of sight." The room erupted with questions from reporters, while officials huddled in confused conferences. Ms. Morrison was speaking urgently into her phone, clearly receiving new instructions from superiors who were watching the live coverage. Dr. Ruiz approached Colin, her voice subdued. "I need to run comprehensive tests, genetic reanalysis, retinal imaging, complete neural pathway evaluation. What we've witnessed here could revolutionize our understanding of genetic blindness." "Then study it," Colin said. "Document everything. But do it with Gloria as part of the research team. Whatever happened here, she's the key to understanding it." Bianca tugged on Gloria's dress, looking up at her with eyes that sparkled with mischief and perfect vision. Gloria, can you teach the doctors your grandmother's songs? Maybe they could help other children too. The suggestion hung in the air like a bridge between two worlds, the world of ancient wisdom and modern medicine, traditional healing and scientific research. Dr. Ruiz turned to Gloria, her expression a mixture of humility and curiosity. Ms. Morales, I owe you an apology. I don't understand what you've done here, but the results speak for themselves. Would you be willing to work with our research team to help us understand how traditional healing might complement modern medicine? Gloria's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy rather than fear. My grandmother always said that healing works best when different kinds of knowledge come together. I would be honored to share what she taught me. Ms. Morrison ended her phone call and approached the group, her shoulders sagging with defeat. I've been instructed to suspend our investigation pending a full medical review. It seems public opinion is strongly in favor of your family's right to pursue alternative healing methods. She turned to Gloria, her voice softer than before. Ms. Morales, I want you to know that our concerns were genuine. We truly believed we were protecting a vulnerable child. But, she glanced at Bianca, who was now reading book titles from across the room with perfect clarity. It's clear that our understanding was limited. The icy official cleared his throat awkwardly. Given the extraordinary circumstances and the potential medical significance of what's occurred here, my superiors have authorized a special visa classification for Ms. Morales. She'll be permitted to remain in the United States as a cultural healer working in collaboration with UCLA Medical Center. Colin felt his knees go weak with relief. They had done it. Against impossible odds, against bureaucratic resistance, against every rational expectation, they had won. The reporters continued filming as Dr. Ruiz began scheduling follow-up appointments, while Ms. Morrison quietly filed paperwork that would formally close the DCFS investigation. But the most beautiful moment came when Bianca walked to the window and looked out at the world she was seeing clearly for the first time. Daddy, she said, her voice filled with wonder. The sky is so blue. And the ocean, it sparkles like diamonds. Mama would have loved to see this with us. Colin joined her at the window, wrapping his arms around his daughter as Gloria stood beside them. She is seeing it with us, sweetheart. I think she's been here all along, helping to make this miracle possible. As the officials and reporters gradually left, the mansion settled into a peaceful quiet that felt sacred. The three of them remained at the window, watching the sun set over Santa Monica in colors that Bianca had dreamed of but never seen, until now. Gloria opened her grandmother's journal one last time, reading aloud the final entry. When healing happens through love, it touches not just the person who receives it, but everyone who witnesses it. This is how the world changes, one miracle at a time, one family at a time, one song at a time. Colin knew that their story was just beginning. There would be research studies, media interviews, and probably a foundation to help other families find healing beyond conventional medicine. But for now, it was enough to stand together as a family, watching his daughter's eyes sparkle with perfect sight, and knowing that sometimes, love really could move mountains. What happens tomorrow? Gloria asked softly. Tomorrow, Colin said, we start helping other children remember how to see. 9 months later, Colin stood in the same spot where he'd first watched Bianca's eyes respond to Gloria's healing songs. But now, instead of lying motionless in bed, his daughter was running across the mansion's back garden, her laughter carrying on the warm June breeze as she chased butterflies she could see in perfect detail. The legal challenges had evaporated once the medical documentation proved Bianca's recovery was real and sustained. DCFS had closed their investigation with a formal apology. Dr. Ruiz had published a groundbreaking case study on unexplained recovery in genetic blindness that was revolutionizing approaches to incurable conditions. And Gloria's visa had been extended with a special provision recognizing her as a traditional healer working in collaboration with UCLA Medical Center. More importantly, Gloria had moved into the mansion permanently, not as domestic help, but as Bianca's healing companion and Colin's closest friend. The three of them had become a family bound not by blood, but by love, faith, and shared belief in miracles. Daddy, watch this. Bianca called out, executing a perfect cartwheel on the grass, her eyes tracking every movement with joyful precision. Colin watched his daughter's perfect vision, still amazed every day by the gift they'd been given. The Santelli Foundation for Traditional Healing had been established with a mission to bridge ancient wisdom and modern medicine. They'd already helped 12 other children with impossible conditions, and Gloria's grandmother's songs were being studied by researchers around the world. Gloria appeared beside him, her grandmother's journal tucked under her arm. "My grandmother would be so proud," she said softly. "She always said love was the most powerful medicine." "Thank you," Colin said, words that could never adequately express his gratitude. "Thank you for seeing what was possible when no one else could." "Thank you for being brave enough to believe," Gloria replied. "And thank you for showing me that healing happens when people choose love over fear." Dr. Ruiz approached them from the garden path, carrying test results from Bianca's latest examination. "Colin, Gloria, the genetic analysis results are in. What we're seeing is unprecedented. Bianca's RPE65 genes are now functioning normally. Not just improved, completely normal." She paused, still struggling to understand the implications. "According to every law of genetics we know, this should be impossible. Genetic mutations don't reverse themselves. But here's the evidence that they can." "Maybe," Gloria suggested gently, "some healings work on levels that science hasn't learned to measure yet." As they watched Bianca run and play with the pure joy of a child whose body finally matched her spirit, Colin felt Sophia's presence surrounding them like a blessing. His wife's love had brought Gloria across oceans to heal their daughter. Her spirit had guided them through doubt and danger to this moment of perfect wholeness. "Look," Bianca called out, pointing to the sky. "Rainbow. There's a rainbow over our house." Colin looked up to see an arc of colors stretching across the clear blue sky. Impossible meteorology, but there it was, painted in hues that Bianca was seeing with perfect clarity. Gloria smiled, opening her grandmother's journal to the final page. "Nana always said that when healing is complete, the ancestors send signs of celebration." Bianca ran toward them, her face glowing with health and happiness, her eyes bright with the vision that had been her birthright all along. She launched herself into Colin's arms, and he caught her easily, spinning her around while her laughter filled the air. "I love our family," she said, wrapping her arms around both Colin and Gloria. "All three of us, together forever." Colin held his daughter close, looking over her head at Gloria, the woman who had brought miracles into their lives through songs older than memory and love stronger than fear. Their family was complete, their daughter was whole, and love had proven once again that it could overcome anything. "Forever," he promised, watching the impossible rainbow stretch across their perfect sky. As the sun began to set over Santa Monica, painting the horizon in colors that Bianca could now see in all their glory, the three of them stood together in their garden. A millionaire's daughter who could see, a healing woman who had found her purpose, and a father who had learned that sometimes the most profound miracles come not from technology or medicine, but from the courage to believe in love that transcends every limitation. The healing songs that had traveled across oceans and generations had found their perfect home, and the child who had been born in darkness now danced in light that would never fade. Sometimes miracles looked like sophisticated medical procedures or cutting-edge technology, but sometimes they looked like a grandmother's healing songs, carried across generations by hands that remembered how to touch the places where spirit met flesh. Sometimes the most profound healing happened when love refused to accept limitations, when faith proved stronger than fear, and when three hearts chose to believe in possibilities that couldn't be measured or explained. What an incredible journey this has been, from despair to hope, from impossible to inevitable. This family found healing through the power of love, faith, and ancient wisdom that bridged cultures and generations. Their story reminds us that miracles aren't just possible. They're happening all around us when we have the courage to believe. Thank you for following Bianca's amazing transformation with me. If this story moved your heart, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Every story I share is crafted with love, and knowing that these tales of hope and healing are reaching hearts around the world makes every word worth writing. Until our next incredible journey together, remember, sometimes the most beautiful miracles come not from what we can prove, but from what we dare to believe.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed it, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and more intriguing than you can ever imagine.